Good afternoon, everyone. This is Brian Sweat, and I'm the product manager for ACCTivate. Today, we're going to spend about 1 hour going through the new features and functionality in the ACCTivate 9.0 release. We're working with a number of beta accounts right now to make sure that it's a very solid and seamless upgrade. And we've actually had customers on this software for almost 9 months, and we'll get into explaining why that is in just a few minutes. Today, we're not going to be able to cover every detail of the new release, so be sure to check the release notes, which will be available on our website at help.activate.com, and you should be able to see the version history right there on the help site, and we'll have detailed release notes as soon as the general release is available. So as we get started, I want to introduce one of the major features and functionalities that we added in ACCTivate 9.0. So the history of the software product is when we begin with ACCTivate, we built ACCTivate to be the operations software for the business, running sales, purchasing, inventory, service, customer service, all of the operations of the business. But we built it to work with back-end accounting software, starting with SIMA in the late 90s, and then obviously most of you are probably using QuickBooks. So in 2003 and 2004, we released our QuickBooks edition of ACCTivate. That is our leading version of the software. Most of our customers are using QuickBooks, but we saw a trend where people are going to larger mid-market systems, and they really liked ACCTivate, and they wanted to stick with ACCTivate, but they found that QuickBooks just wasn't sufficient to run their business. About a year ago, we've been talking to a company called Intact. Intact is a cloud financial accounting package. It is built to help customers that are on QuickBooks that have outgrown QuickBooks. It's a nice upgrade path for QuickBooks users. So ACCTivate is now seamlessly integrated with Intact, just as it is with QuickBooks, and it is a new addition of our software product. In fact, we found out about Intact through Intuit. We've been working with QuickBooks, which is built by Intuit, and Intuit also recognized the need for people to outgrow QuickBooks, and they work with ACCTivate with other add-ons, but at some point they understand that they need a stronger financial package. Intuit is working with Intact as a partner to help QuickBooks graduates, and that's why we chose them as our next integrated accounting package. Intact is a lot different than QuickBooks. It runs in the browser, so it is a full web-based system. It does offer similar look and feel, similar concepts to QuickBooks. A lot of customers that are using Intact obviously were former QuickBooks users, so a lot of people will be comfortable moving from QuickBooks to Intact. They have customer lists, just as you would see in QuickBooks. You can edit customers in either Intact or ACCTivate, and it synchronizes two-way, just as you'd expect with ACCTivate. They also have a little more formal terms, such as customer ID numbers. You can set up auto numbers in addition to names. You can obviously modify records. They have a tabbed interface. It looks a lot like ACCTivate with multiple tabs. But of course, because it is in the browser, you can also open multiple browser tabs. Intact is a lot more functional than QuickBooks. It has a lot more functionality. So for example, this is an accounts payable bill. You'll see that on the line items, instead of just an expense account and a dollar amount, as you'll see with QuickBooks with ACCTivate, you also have departments, locations, and they also have the ability to allocate financial transactions to multiple GL accounts. And one of the key things that Intact offers is a term called dimensions. And each transaction that's posted in Intact can have a separate customer, project, employee, item, department, and location. And it allows you to create a multi-dimensional financial reports straight off your general ledger. So again, this is just something I wanted to get done in just a few minutes, kind of explain where we've been and what we've been working on in the last year. This is one of the big changes we did for ACCTivate 9.0. We don't expect a lot of people to upgrade from ACCTivate and QuickBooks. And this is really to grow our market share and create more revenue for our company, which allows us to build a better product for all of our customers. And again, QuickBooks is in the 95+% of our user base. So we absolutely are still laser focused on the QuickBooks market. So I wanted to get that out of the way because I recognize that almost everyone on the call today is a QuickBooks customer. So we want to really focus on that. So the next thing I want to do, I want to ask you about something that you've read in the news. We have a lot of news right now about a topic that I think is important to most wholesale distribution companies. So I first want to ask everybody, what is your current situation with sales tax? This is a leading question, of course. What are your responsibilities for charging sales tax? How are you doing it today? What is your current method for sales tax? The first option is none. We don't charge sales tax. We are typically dealing with wholesale or out-of-state orders, and it's not a big deal. The second option is we ship in-state. Anytime we ship in-state to customers within our jurisdictions, within our state, we charge our local sales tax rate from our home office. So for example, we're in Arlington, Texas, and if we were to ship a product to Houston, would we just charge the Arlington sales tax rate? The third option is if we were in Texas and we ship to Houston, are we currently charging the Houston sales tax rate? And then lastly, the final option is, are you doing national sales tax, meaning if you ship outside of your state, so for example, if I'm in Texas and I'm shipping to California, am I charging the local jurisdiction's sales tax in California? And I'll share the results. As the survey shows right here, 40% of you are not charging sales tax. Either you don't typically need to do it because you're shipping out of state, it's an e-commerce order, you're shipping with UPS, FedEx from your office, and because it's out of state, you're not worried about it because there are no laws requiring that. The second two options, looks like a quarter of you are either using your local tax rate for your home office, and finally a quarter of you are using your customer's rate, but only in-state. And 11% of you are doing what I believe we'll all be forced to do in the next couple of years, which is national. So I'm going to close the poll real quick and show you a map that might be a little intimidating at first. And this is a map that was provided by a partner of ours who I'll introduce in just a few minutes. This sales tax jurisdictions across the U.S. are by far the most complicated for anywhere in the world because we've obviously given this states' rights, and each state can decide how they're going to charge sales tax, and then each municipality also can chime in and create special jurisdictions for tax. We happen to have our home office in Arlington, Texas, where a lot of you may know the Dallas Cowboys built a multi-billion-dollar stadium a few years back, and that was a special sales tax that helped fund that development. Jerry Jones put a lot of money into it as well, but these are special tax jurisdictions, and these continue to grow. There are over 9,000 jurisdictions in the United States. And if you live in Oregon, that's great because you don't have sales tax, but other than that, there's only a few other states that have a statewide sales tax rate. What we found is, and we've been following very closely in the news, is the Marketplace Fairness Act. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time educating you on this. We'll follow up and do a more detailed session in the future if need be. But the Marketplace Fairness Act has passed the Senate, and it's probably going to get passed through the House soon. Obviously, I don't know, but the bottom line to that is that you will be liable to charge sales tax based on where the product is shipped at the time of the transaction, no matter where they are located within the United States. Now, if you watch the news and you read articles, you may see an exemption that some people say, oh, it doesn't apply to small business because there's limitations and that sort of thing. And that's a myth because I think most of you on the call, if you are shipping out of state a lot, it doesn't matter how much profit you make on out-of-state orders. It's all about the total gross revenue that you've generated outside of your state. And the limitation that's in the current bill is $1 million in gross revenue outside of your state. Okay, so if you are generating over $1 million in revenue, then you will be subject to the Marketplace Fairness Act, which requires you to charge the sales tax for every jurisdiction in the United States, which is over 9,000 codes. Use Google and type in Marketplace Fairness Act and you'll get tons of information. One of the ones that hit home to me from one of the top CPA firms, it's the number 6 CPA firm in the country. They did a large survey to a lot of businesses, and a lot of people say, this is definitely going to impact my profit because of the pure effort it's going to take to keep track of all these tax rates, and my staff is not going to be able to handle it. So what we did was we've been watching this market, and we found a partner which is called Avalara, and you may have heard of them because they're also the leading sales tax provider for QuickBooks, and that's one of the main reasons why we selected them. And Avalara has a product called ACCTivate, which is a cloud-based web service that does 3 key things. Number one, it calculates your sales tax no matter where you ship the product, anywhere in the country, actually anywhere in the world. That global is something that I'm still kind of getting my head around how they're doing that. Because VAT is complicated if you're a multinational business. Primarily, they're focused on all the 9,000 jurisdictions in the US. Number two, they also have a service to help you manage exemption certificates. If you're a wholesaler and you're selling to companies that have exemption certificates, you're supposed to keep those and file the numbers and keep records. And Avalara has a service that manages the certificates and also keeps track of expiration dates and any special requirements for states. And lastly, probably the most important piece of ACCTivate is that they also provide the reporting, filing, and returns to all the jurisdictions. So you don't have to worry about submitting your sales tax remittance to all comptrollers and all the jurisdictions. What does that mean for ACCTivate? Well, because we've integrated with ACCTivate from Avalara, once you sign up with the ACCTivate service, which there is an additional fee for that, that's through ACCTivate, and it's a transaction-based fee. So if you're a small business just getting started, it's going to be a lot cheaper than a company processing 5,000 to 10,000 orders a month. But the key thing that ACCTivate gets is, A, we get address validation. So as you enter customer records or sales orders in ACCTivate, the address will be validated and converted to the proper post office address for all United States and Canadian addresses. B, as I mentioned earlier, they will calculate the sales tax to get the exact dollar amount and the percentage for each jurisdiction you ship to. They manage exemption certificates, which ACCTivate will also have the exemption certificate number, but Avalara will back that up with more information on their side. They do the sales tax reporting and filing. There's no need to produce sales tax reports out of QuickBooks. Avalara has a far superior system for managing that and doing the reports. But most importantly, it's also fully integrated with QuickBooks. So if you're using ACCTivate to produce most of your sales orders and invoices, you can also use QuickBooks and you'll get the same results. And lastly, one of the most important reasons why we went with ACCTivate is they have integrated with most of the popular web store platforms. Our number one e-commerce platform integration today is Magento. We've shown pretty amazing numbers. Almost 40% of our integrations have been with Magento. And ACCTivate is a certified partner of Magento. We'll show this quickly. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on ACCTivate in the demo today, but I'll show you real quick just some of the things that it does. The next thing that we're introducing in ACCTivate 9.0, and you might see a theme here, we've got a lot of new integrations. The next integration is with SmartVault. And you may not have heard of SmartVault before unless you've really looked into QuickBooks add-ons for document management. They're the leader in online cloud document storage for QuickBooks. We started looking around 2 or 3 years ago. We actually met these guys in 2008, so it's been 6 years. We found the reviews from independent third-party consultants and really industry leaders, and a lot of people pointed to SmartVault and said you should just go with them, and they've got the best system. And the key thing, I like this quote from Charlie Russell, he's with the Sleater Group, which is one of the leading groups for QuickBooks Pro advisors and professionals. I think he said it best when he said it works with all aspects of your desktop. So it's integrated in the browser. You can get to it on your iPad, in ACCTivate, in QuickBooks, in Outlook. All of these applications, they've built plugins. So you can have one way of managing all your file attachments to all your business systems. So it's pretty fantastic. If you're not familiar with SmartVault, where we found out about them again was QuickBooks. So their claim to fame is the best attachments for QuickBooks. Once you install SmartVault, it adds a toolbar for all transactions and items within the QuickBooks user interface. And I'm showing this in the presentation because I'm not going to spend a lot of time in the demo showing you QuickBooks. But when you attach a record in either ACCTivate or QuickBooks, you can have it visible for both users. Now, even within that record, there are file permissions, so each document can be fine-tuned to a group of users or individual users. But it's a seamless integration with both systems. They also have a plugin for Outlook. So when you're sending someone an email, instead of going to the document management system and saving the file on your desktop and then drag and dropping it to Outlook, you can actually send them a safe, secure link to get to the file directly from your SmartVault. And that is a cloud link. It's similar to Dropbox or Box.net. And the fact that the file itself is not sent to them, it's a link to the file. And that means if you update the file or make a revision to it, they can always get the latest version. And the customer will receive an email with a link to view financial statements or any documents that you want to share with them. So it's just a quick example. Just a quick summary. I wanted to get through these major integrations first. We'll show that off, and then we'll talk about some of the other improvements we made in Activate 9.0. So the key thing is we are moving beyond QuickBooks. So when you're ready or feeling that QuickBooks is not handling what you need anymore, be sure to talk to us before looking at starting all over with a whole new system and losing QuickBooks. We may have an option for you, and that's with Intact. Avalara gets us ready for the Marketplace Fairness Act, and it gets you ready for sales tax compliance. And if you're in a state that has streamlined sales tax requirements today, then you might want to look at AvaTax now, even before any legislation passes. And then lastly, Smart Vault is available today in Activate 9.0 for all customers to get cloud documents attached within Activate, within QuickBooks, and within the browser, the iPad, anything like that. Okay? So 3 key integrations we've added in 9.0. But what else do we do? We've worked with a development tracker for 10 years. As long as I remember, we've been tracking customer feedback, and we've tried to, in each release, try to decide which are the major changes or features or functionalities we want to introduce. And in 9.0, instead of adding a brand new core module, we've actually focused on improvements throughout the system to a variety of existing modules. So we've added 3 new integrations, which are on the outside edges of Activate, but within the software, we've made numerous improvements. The first thing I want to talk about, for all of you existing customers, you're probably familiar with the synchronization with QuickBooks. And I think we've done a really good job with that. I look back on that, and I was told by a guy at Intuit in 2008, we were at the Intuit corporate headquarters, and one of the development managers came up to me and told me that he believed that Activate had the most robust synchronization with QuickBooks for transactions, such as invoices, payments, general journal entries, vendor bills, customers, all of that information. In our industry, it's definitely the leader in terms of a two-way synchronization. But for those of you that have used it for a long time, you know that there sometimes are conflicts. And one of the most common conflicts that we've had is where synchronization gets interrupted or something goes wrong and a record does not get created in QuickBooks properly, or vice versa. A QuickBooks record doesn't come over to Activate properly. We usually get those resolved pretty quickly. Usually running another sync fixes the problem. But when you do that, one of the unfortunate side effects is duplicate records. And we've seen that with invoices, with payments, general journal entries, vendor bills, and it's frustrating because you might not notice it for a while. Of course, you can simply delete the duplicate record in QuickBooks, and that usually resolves the problem. But in Activate 9.0, we've really put a lot of changes into the synchronization with QuickBooks to address this concern. And what we've done is we keep track at the record level. Every time we're attempting to create or update a record in QuickBooks, we log it in our database first to make sure that it goes through successfully. And if it doesn't, the next time you run synchronization, you may have already seen this, but it's changing a little bit in 9.0. You'll actually get a pop-up message that says your prior synchronization didn't complete successfully. Now, this is 2 or 3-fold here. Number one, it might say that another user is still running synchronization. So it might say, user Mike Smith has still started a synchronization on January 28th at 11:20 a.m. and it hasn't finished yet. And then it'll pause and let you decide what to do. So you should probably, if it has someone else's name on it, you should check with them first and make sure they finished. We do understand though, and full disclosure here, I don't have access to the QuickBooks developers, but apparently there are bugs in QuickBooks, and sometimes it causes sync to crash. So you'll get an internal error in QuickBooks and it will stop running. So we've known about that for years, and I hate to say that there's some finger pointing probably, but at some point we thought, oh well, QuickBooks should fix their problems. We're done with that. We actually want to address that concern ourselves. So now we carefully restart the sync anytime we found that the prior sync failed, and we go back and we look at the exact record that we were in process of writing to, and we check to make sure that it didn't get created. If it did, we relink it properly rather than recreating it as a duplicate. So I feel really confident that the 9.0 release will stop the duplication of data. This was our #1 most requested bug over the last 5 years. So we've resolved that in 9.0. The next thing we've done, which is our #1 enhancement over the last 10 years, is the ability in order processing to insert a row on the sales order, to move an existing row up or down, or to quickly delete a row without having to highlight the grid and do a couple clicks. So we definitely put a lot of effort into working with both sales orders and purchase orders. So just because I showed the sales order window here, just definitely rest assured we added this capability for purchasing as well. This is I think it's a very well implemented way of doing it. We use the same shortcut keys that are found in QuickBooks for the insert row, which is Control Insert, but our move up and down are fantastic. And that lets you just enter at the bottom of the grid, so you don't have to move your mouse up and down and insert a row and then scroll back down like you do in QuickBooks. So in ACCTivate, when you're taking the customer's order, enter it in the sequence they give it to you on the phone or face-to-face, and then later on you can move the rows around to get them in the proper sequence. The #2 most requested improvement, and this was a series of requests, is to improve the way sales orders are scheduled. Quickly and easily reschedule sales orders based on new inventory that has came into the warehouse. So when you do an inventory receipt, make it very simple to reschedule your sales orders. Now, what most customers have asked me for, or asked us for over the years, is that when they do an inventory receipt, they want it to reschedule that sales order, or the sales order for that one receipt. The problem with that approach is that we understand most of you don't have one sales order at a time, so you're actually processing hundreds of orders, or you may have a backlog of sales orders waiting for the inventory that you just received. So we've added the schedule button on the sales order window, but we don't expect most people to do that and open each individual sales order. So we've also expanded the business alerts function to include scheduling functionality right there on the sales order management tab. And this allows you to filter and sort the grid in any sequence that you'd like. And we also show red light, green light, and yellow lights based on the current schedule. So if an order is fully scheduled, it really probably shouldn't be on here. It should be shipped. But these are orders that have not been shipped yet. And you can filter on workflow status as well if that's part of your business. But these are orders that are fully scheduled and ready to go. The yellow light shows that the order is not fully scheduled, and it's something that you should reschedule. And then finally, I don't have it on the screen right now, but we have a red light for orders that not one of the items can ship complete. And those are usually your biggest problems that you need to address first and figure out what to do about. It's possible you may need to cancel the order. So once you've selected the items, there's a checkbox on the far left. You can select all and just reschedule your entire inventory, your entire backlog of sales orders automatically. Or you can select specific orders, such as for a specific customer type or a salesperson, and just schedule those orders first ahead of all the other orders. Once the orders are scheduled, you can print your pick tickets using our batch pick ticket printing, and then go ahead and ship those orders. Once they're shipped, they'll drop off the sales order management tab. And definitely this is the first big improvement here. We've got other plans in the future, and we love feedback on this. Once you get 9.0 and start using it, definitely would appreciate kind of your results and see how it works for you. Next thing we've done is some improvements to business activities. We've used business activities primarily for service and returns and RMAs for most of our customers. We also use it for sales opportunities and such. But one of the most common requests we've had is for people to do service requests and link the actual serial number or lot number. So if you're registered for both the lot number module and the business activity module, you can now link specific business activities to a lot or serial number. And we've also added a new lot serial number lookup window. You can search for all lot numbers across your entire inventory, all products, or you can filter it down to just a single product and then browse and look up any lot numbers for that one product. The other thing that we've noticed is the business activity status codes. So if you're using business activities for RMAs, you probably want to have statuses that show the flow through your business. So it starts in new, moves to open, pending, any additional information needed, finally authorized, and then closed. So in configuration management now, if you're using business activities, you need to select the activity type, such as RMA, And now you can define the sequence of status codes that appear in the dropdowns. Just a minor usability improvement, but we've had some good feedback from that. The next thing I want to talk about is our newly introduced module from last year in ACCTivate 8.1, which was a big hit. We had a lot of customers upgrade to landed cost last year. We had two major requests that happened a lot, and we heard you for sure, and we actually have a couple people that I think are already beta testing these features. And the first one is to allocate landed costs by volume. So most of our customers use weight. That's a metric that a lot of people have set up on products. We've been dealing with that for years. Volume is something that we haven't done a lot with, and we haven't had a lot of feedback on until we released landed cost. And then all of a sudden we got a lot of response saying our delivery, our freight expenses that go into landed cost as cost of goods sold, we would like to allocate those by volume. So if you're using landed cost, you now have the option to allocate by quantity, by value, by weight, and now by volume. So volume is definitely a new option for you. We also have added landed costs for manufacturing. So this is a really good way to handle outsourced labor or any outsourced contract work that you need to pay a vendor for service that was involved in the assemblies. And what that does, instead of putting as a line item, as a component in the bill of materials, it allows you to post all your manufacturing assemblies first, and then later on, after it's been posted, you can go back and add a monthly, like in this example, we have a January bill for our monthly manufacturing fees from this vendor. And now we can take that vendor's bill and we can allocate it across all assemblies that you can have as many as you want, or you can do all for the month, or you can select specific assemblies. And then it will allow you to allocate that by the value, by the quantity, by any of the metrics that we just showed. So this is, again, these are two of our most popular requests off the landed cost module, which we got a lot of after we released that last year. The next thing we've done, which I think affects everyone moving forward. So this is a thing that started about 2 or 3 years ago as we saw a lot of our customers moving to cloud email service providers. And just for full disclosure, we also have done that. So we use Microsoft Office 365, and I would highly recommend that. I don't get anything from Microsoft for making that recommendation. That is definitely a personal recommendation. And what we found with that is that when you're using a cloud-based email provider and you don't have your own email server, then you don't have as much flexibility in configuring your email settings. So the most important setting we found is that you need to send, each user needs to send email with their own credentials. So you're unable to send email from my account as Zach Allen at Alterity.com. So we've now moved the email settings from the company level to where it should have always been, honestly, which is at the user level. So for each user now, you can either just say use the company-wide email setting. So if you have a single email address you want for all your service people or all your people in ACCTivate, you can configure that, such as sales at yourcompany.com, and then you can have an option per user to override those settings and use their own settings. So in this example on my screenshot, I've configured it for office365.com with my own personal account, and it works quite well. In addition to that, we also had to add support for TLS encryption. So if your IT guy or your administrator told you that you can't send email through ACCTivate, you have to use Microsoft Mail, which is Outlook, because it doesn't support their encryption. I think that's going to be changed in 9.0. So just let us know if you have any trouble sending email. This works with Gmail, with Office 365. I think it should work with Yahoo as well. I just haven't personally tested that. In the last slide before we move into a demo, this is more of an FYI. We have carefully moved ACCTivate's user data files outside of program files directory. So if you're not an IT guy or you're not the administrator, this probably doesn't mean anything to you, but the one key thing, and I want to highlight this right now, is that the custom reports folder has been moved. So when you upgrade to 9.0, you will have a warning and it will have a link to explain it, and you can forward that on to your administrator for doing backups. But the custom reports folder will be moved on your server to the program data directory, which is a new thing after Windows Vista, I think. So it's going to be C program data Alterity ACCTivate. It may not be the C drive. If your system drive is the X drive, it could be X. But the key thing is we are moving custom reports to a new folder. And this is done for a lot of reasons, But the key thing is Microsoft's best practice is to not have any user data files under program files. Most backup systems are able to work with the other directories like program data, but they may not be compatible with program files. It's a long story. Just write this down. If you have a lot of custom reports, they will be moved, and you need to make sure you adjust your backup plan to include that folder. Again, we'll clearly explain when you do the upgrade, and there's a lot of reasons for it, so maybe that'll help. Okay, as we get started here, I'm going to start with just the ACCTivate 9.0 desktop, and as you see, we haven't made a lot of major changes. The interface is mostly the same. We've got some improvements throughout, but for the most part, should be very familiar. So pretty easy upgrade for most people. So we'll get started right away with showing you just the sales order processing improvements in the workflow throughout the system. So the first thing I want to do is go create a new customer, and we'll just create it for Alterity. That's my company name here for Southwestern Industries, and we can skip that. Put in an address here, and be done with that. Choose a salesperson, and one of the things that I want to talk about is, you may notice, just to kind of mention that Avalara is integrated with this version of ACCTivate I have. So it did update our address automatically with Arlington, Texas, and it added the postal code. So I didn't even have to type that. It knows how to do that. There will be no pop-up warning. You won't have anything that pops up as long as it's not changing data. But if you do make a mistake, like for example, if I put the wrong postal code, let's say 76010, and I move off that, there's an address validation confirmation pop-up. We don't force you to change the address, but for shipping and sales tax, you really do need to get that updated. So just choose yes, which is the default. You can press enter, and that automatically changes that. Okay. Once we've got our sales customer, we can enter a new sales order. So I already have an Alterity customer, and we'll create a new sales order. Now the first thing we'll talk about here is sales order entry really hasn't changed too much. There's a couple new features you'll see, but you can go ahead and just enter an order just like you always have. You'll have pop-up notes. You can put the quantity in. We've actually made numerous improvements to make this order entry a lot more solid. I think there were some oddities where the up-down arrow keys didn't always work very well, or scrolling got buggy. So we put a lot of effort in trying to make this solid, and hopefully you'll see that with the ACCTivate 9.0 release. Okay, so we've added a couple line items to the order. At this point, maybe we put on an additional charge. We can do our product lookup, simply hit F4. The lookup windows have all been changed a little bit. Hopefully you'll get used to this, but we've moved to a single form that has a little bit more flexibility. Again, not going to get into a lot of details about that right now. But we'll go ahead and put maybe a shipping charge here. $25 flat rate. And then the customer mentioned, oh wow, I need to get a personal copier as well. So put personal copier on at the bottom. Now of course what you might want to do with this is have the shipping charge be at the bottom of the order. So we can either select the row we just added and we can move it up right here. So we can choose move and move up. And as you notice, when you click the menu, be sure to pay attention to these shortcut keys. So control up is going to be our shortcut to move it up, and control down moves it down. Okay, so we can just simply move it up. Now, if you're a keyboard person like I am, you can actually hold it down and it will move it quickly throughout the entire order. So you can just do control up, 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 and it'll move it to the top of the order. Okay. At this point, again, we can just save the order, or we can begin inserting order lines at the bottom like normal. Now, if we want to insert a new row immediately under the personal copier, you need to select the row that you would like to add the line above, and then choose Insert Row, which on your keyboard is Control Insert. Once we do Control Insert, it places the cursor into the product ID field, and then we can go ahead and use the lookup button and any other method to add that item. We have one item that was back ordered, but the rest are scheduled, ready to go. We need to select a serial number for that item. Scheduled. And this order is pretty much done, so we can save at that point. Now, one shortcut that I do want to point out, of course you've always been able to delete items off the sales order, but Control Delete is a much more efficient way of doing it. So the prior way to do it in ACCTivate 8 and versions before is to select the entire row by clicking over on the left and then hitting Delete on your keyboard. That still works, we're not going to change that, but at anywhere within the line, so if I'm right here, just in the special instructions field, I can hold down Control and press Delete, and then I'll get my pop-up and I can simply press Enter. So it makes it a lot easier to do. So we've got all this information in. Now what I do want to show, of course, is show our scheduling capabilities. So if we look at our B10 product, you'll see that we have 492 available. But what happens if a customer orders 500? Well, as you can imagine, it back orders 8. So we have 492 scheduled and we have 8 on back order. So we'll save that order as it is, and then we'll show that off in our scheduling wizard. Now at this point, if we go back and we reset our schedule, at any time you can open an old order and you can reschedule it. When you do that, all it's going to do is reschedule based on inventory quantities. Well, nothing changed, so that's not an issue. But for example, if it was previously back ordered 50 and then I reset my schedule, it just switches it back to the current availability, including all other scheduled orders. So again, this has no way of stealing quantities from other sales orders. So it's a very simple way of scheduling orders. Okay, so we have this order ready, but it's back ordered. Now I'm going to switch to business alerts to show you our alternative way of scheduling orders. And if we look at orders here, we might want to look at only Floyd's orders by one salesperson, because that's me and I'm working that. And we'll have a list of all our orders here. And we've got one that I entered earlier today, which is green, and that shows it's fully scheduled. Then we have the second item, which is the order I just entered, which is yellow because it's partially scheduled. So these 4 items here are ready to go. I can print the pick tickets and have them go out to the warehouse. But this one here is our problem. Now, I can select all the items right here, and then I can choose schedule, and you'll see no change because there's no inventory available. Okay. And at this point, of course, we have a few items here that will now be on our reorder wizard. So if I go to inventory management here, all of these items are below our stocking level. Okay. Now, if I'm looking at branches, maybe I only want to schedule for the Fort Worth warehouse. So I'll go to my reorder wizard, go ahead and check off the items that I need to order for those sales orders. And I can run reports for this because I have a lot that's back ordered right now. But we'll just do these 2 for now. That's all we need. Can create our purchase orders. It's actually going to be one PO because of Martin Office. They both happen to be on the same vendor. So we'll go to our purchase order here. We'll look at that PO. Nothing to do here. It's ready to go. We'll go ahead and simulate the inventory receipt. Let's just pretend it already came in, and we'll post that receipt. Now, simply posting the receipt doesn't automatically schedule that single sales order because we haven't taken this step to actually go review which orders we want to allocate that inventory to. But if I look at my product drop-down right here, we now have plenty of availability. So let's just keep this over here on the side. And we'll go back to our business alerts. So these items are still partially scheduled, but now we can just select all. There's no need to look at each one of them. Let's just see what we can ship. Okay. And most of our orders have been rescheduled at this point, so we can now print pick tickets for those individual orders or run our batch method for that. Once we've done that, we'll send it to the warehouse to be shipped and processed and invoiced. Okay, so that easily reschedules orders. These grids can be sorted and filtered by a couple options. We also include the total amount here, the workflow status, the customer type. So we got a lot of options. If you scroll the grid, and you can move these columns around. So if you want to see the subtotal right next to the order number, just move the column, and it will actually remember your position where you had it. So again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of functionality here. We obviously don't have enough time to cover it in great detail, but I think once you put your hands on it, you'll find it's pretty simple and it works really well. That's our sales order scheduling. We've already had a couple of questions. I just need to really point out again that when you do a purchase order, you have the same capabilities for moving lines. It works exactly the same way. I think you'll be familiar with it. So if we do anything like that, you simply highlight a row or click anywhere in it, and then you have the same exact shortcut keys. So you can insert a row, move up and down, and delete. Pretty easy. Now the landed cost improvements are pretty simple. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Landed cost, added volume, and we added the manufacturing. But I do want to show business activities, show you kind of the workflow on the lot number, serial number improvements, because I think that works pretty well. So if you're working with RMAs, we can now look at all of our open return merchandise authorizations, and we can see one here with damaged rings. And again, we've really put some effort into making this a more seamless process. So if we had any lot number, serial numbers, you can simply attach a lot serial number, and by default you'll see all the serial numbers that are in the system, but we can easily filter it. Let's say it was for a personal copier. You can either just type in the product ID, as you type it filters the list, or you can do the lookup, which will filter and let you choose all of our lot serialed products, and once you choose the lot serial product, it returns to the lot number list. So if we had a problem, the customer also mentioned that his printer's jammed, probably should create a new business activity, but you can just link that here, and then that's going to keep it in our list here. Okay. One of the things that we should also be sure we go through, I just want to demonstrate the Smart Vault capabilities. I've had a couple of people ask about the paper clips. So this is how the document attachments work. It's pretty simple. If there are any files attached, you'll see the number of documents listed there, and then you can simply view that. And you've got your documents attached to the customer record. This is just some testing data. And then if we actually hit the button, it'll go to the attach dialog. But when you do that, you'll see a pop-up window. There's one other item here once you have a live account. You can either browse to files on your computer. So I can just go to my desktop. Let's see here. And I can just grab a file there, and it will attach it, bring it in, and then I hit accept. And we'll actually upload it to the cloud storage system. And you can rename the file name right here. Let's say we can call this invoice. And that actually changes the file name. And then save your changes. If you want to save the file to your desktop, it's already on my desktop, so I probably wouldn't want to do this, but another user in the company could save that file. We also let you browse and look at it in the browser. So this would be, bring this to my other screen. So this is Smart Vault's view of the document. Got a pretty low resolution right now for the demo, but you've got a lot of options here. You can download it. You can send a link to someone who's outside of your organization to look at the file. Of course, you can download it straight from the browser as well. Okay. So the Smart Vault integration is throughout ACCTivate. We're really trying to get it on every screen, a transaction or a customer, a product, anything like that. So you'll see that throughout the system. And then if we open QuickBooks, we'll see those same documents available on the Abercrombie customer record. The other thing that I really would recommend everyone do once they upgrade to 9.0 is go ahead and take a look at the user options for email. I've got a lot of requests for this. So if you look under each user, that's where you're going to see that new email settings. So just choose, instead of from company, choose personal, and then you'll need to enter in the server, which you'll find from your email provider. They document this for you. The encryption type, username and password. And for Office 365 and for Gmail, that's going to be your full username as your email address. So it's brian@alterity.com or brian@gmail.com. We're kind of running out of time, and I'm not going to have enough time to go through everything. The landed cost module is an add-on to ACCTivate, and since it was new in 8.1, I know a lot of you may have missed that webinar or you may not have attended it. But landed cost has definitely been improved upon in the new release, so definitely take a look at that. If you did initially and it didn't do exactly what you want, I'd encourage you to take a look again. And it just allows you to take a vendor bill from any vendor. You can actually allocate it to all the inventory assemblies, transfers, any transaction to add what you would normally consider expenses as cost of goods sold. And it's all your cost in landing the product into your inventory. So I've got a lot of functionality there, something to take a look at for ACCTivate 9.0, especially if you're in manufacturing and you have any subcontract costs that go into manufacturing. Okay, well, this is a whirlwind introduction to ACCTivate 9.0. I think, as you all know, and those of you that have been with us for years, we already are actively working on a new release, and there's some pretty big enhancements coming in that as well. But just as a follow-up, the main focus as we have is customer feedback. So again, if you've got any issues, your implementation rep, if you're still new to ACCTivate, I work very closely with that team and the support team, and getting all your feedback into our tracker to see what are the most actively requested modules and features that we need to add into ACCTivate. We'll be coming back shortly with the 9.1 release, which we'll be having out soon. Okay, and if anyone's interested in any of these features today, we're actively looking for people to be in the preview. We call it a preview instead of beta because we expect you to run your business on the software. Other companies may call it beta and they tell you, there's a disclaimer to don't use this with production company data. We take that very seriously and we restrict the preview to only a few accounts at a time. And I expect the 9.0 release to be out as soon as we get through any feedback, bugs, issues with those beta customers. I'm optimistic. I hope that happens in the next couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks. That would be my goal, to have this completely done for everyone. But if you're really interested in either Smart Vault or Avalara or landed cost by volume or assemblies, reach out to us, let us know, and we'll get you upgraded on that. And this version of the software, as most of you know, is fully compatible with the latest version of QuickBooks, Cyma, and Intact. So if you're on QuickBooks 2014, we're fully compatible. Most of our customers are upgrading at this point. So definitely let us know if you have any other questions. And we're going to close it out on time today at 1 hour. And I hope you learned a little bit and got some interesting insight into our next release. And we'll see you next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye.